much for tuning in to today's edition of History in Your Own Backyard. Today we're at the Dillsboro Community Park right here in Dillsboro, Indiana, and we're talking with Mr. Jim Deaton about the history of the town. Jim, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thanks, Danielle. And I'd like to start talking about Dillsboro before there was a Dillsboro.
Go for it.
Okay. Before there was a Dillsboro, there were people living here. There was the Miami tribe, then the Delawares, the Potawatomis, and then in 1818, the sixth president of the United States, whoever he was.
John Quincy Adams?
John Quincy Adams. He gave how'd you know that? Gave a land grant to William Fraser. It was for 155 acres. In the center of that 155 acres, right now, is the corner of Front and North Streets in Dillsboro. Well, after William Fraser came in, other settlers started coming in. And those settlers came in, they cut down trees, there were lots of trees, and they built log houses, not little square ones, they built big round ones. There got to be so many people here, they got a church, and that was the Hopewell Presbyterian Church. It was the Hopewell Presbyterian Church because that's what the settlers called their town. They called this place Hopewell, that they decided to incorporate. That was 1830, and Dillsboro did incorporate. So they went down to the courthouse, and they went to the county recorder, and the county recorder said, okay, I will record your town, and it's going to cost you. They were unprepared for that. As a matter of fact, they were probably old German, and they weren't going to spend a penny. So the county recorder made them a deal, and the deal was, if you let me name your town, I'll do it for free. They thought that was a good deal. Well, the county recorder was General James C. Dills. James C. Dills was a general in the War of 1812. Came back, county recorder. Now the town's named Dillsboro. James Dill named it after himself. There are two Dillsboroughs in the United States. One's in North Carolina, this one's in Indiana. I don't know who they named the other one after, but this one's named after General James C. Dills. Industry came to Dillsboro, 1837. Look at all this lumber. And the merchants in Cincinnati needed barrels. So a cooperage appeared in Dillsboro. Tell you what, they hired 40, 50 people, and that's a lot of industry for a town like this. And the cooperage industry was really the main industry until the turn of into the 20th century. Well, 1900 comes along, and the cooperage business starts to wane out. But that's when the Dillsboro Oil and Gas Company formed. And it came to Dillsboro because it was going to make us all rich. They were going to find oil, and they didn't. But at 1,378 feet, they hit a sea of some of the finest mineral water in the world. They did an analysis, and it compared very favorably to the finest spas in Europe. Well, it took a while. The oil and gas company left, but in comes a group of local guys who said, we can do something with this water. They did it in Europe, we can do it here. And they built a big wooden structure, and they filled it. And people would come to the Dillsboro Sanitarium to drink the water. It smelled horrible, a lot of sulfur, and it was black. Well, they would drink it cold, they would drink it hot, and they'd take baths in it, and they'd get massages, and they'd relax. And the place got overrun with people, so they built an addition, and they could have over 100 people staying there at one time. And even up through the 1950s, there were quite often, that place was full. It provided a lot of jobs in Dillsboro. It kept Dillsboro going. You know what happened in the 50s and 60s? Modern medicine took over. And people no longer drank water for their health and no longer took rest for their health. They took pills. And business dropped off and dropped off. And the board of directors was about to salvage the place, just tear it down and salvage it. And in comes Dallas and Dorothea Ross. They said, we can do something better than that with this place. So they got some backers and they bought it, and they converted it into a retirement home. And people would just come down to live, a place to get away from home, a little attention with their friends. And then Medicare came along, Medicaid, and the government started paying for people to stay in nursing homes. So that retirement home suddenly became a nursing home. It's still there. It's still providing jobs in Dillsboro. Well, things were changing, and eventually all the small retail businesses in Dillsboro left, except for like the pharmacy, the grocery store, the things that people needed to go get things immediately. Those are still here. There's a restaurant in Dillsboro. There's a post office in Dillsboro. They're all really busy. You know, there are some entrepreneurs in this area. I remember back in 1992, Larry M. had a bush hog. And a bush hog, that's a skid loader. And you put attachments on the front. And he saw all these farmers around here, and they were bush hogging their fields. They put that attachment on the back of their tractor, and it was slow. And going through that stuff before your bush hog gets to it is really tough. It leaves you scratched up. And Larry said, you know, if I could take one of those bush hogs and find a way to attach it to the front of a bobcat, this would be a whole lot easier. So we worked on it and worked on it. He found a way to make a hydraulic attachment from that bush hog to the bobcat, or vice versa. And it worked. I remember when he tried it out, and he was just jubilant. And then the entrepreneur comes along. There's D.L. Ransom. He comes along about 11 years later, and he says, I can manufacture that. Well, there's a manufacturing operation right now in Dillsboro making bush hogs that fit on the front of bobcats.
So what are some of the other really, really interesting things that have happened throughout the years and in Dillsboro?
Well, you know, one thing happens in Dillsboro every year right now. There used to be a Dillsboro Fall Festival, and that was at the turn of the century. And that kind of waned down. And then, it was like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we started again. It started small. And right now, every May, Dillsboro has the #1 small town festival in the state of Indiana. People come from all over just to ride the rides, to eat the food, to see the people, and to have a good time. The entertainment is great.
That's great.
And right now, you know, the Dillsboro Civic Club has done a lot for this town. The Dillsboro Civic Club, they'll bring Santa Claus in just before Christmas. They'll put in December, the streets of Dillsboro overhead are lined with lights. And the Civic Club does that.
That's nice.
For Halloween, they have a Halloween parade, and all the kids have a parade down the street, and they come over and they get judged for the best costumes.
And about how many people do you think started off when Dillsboro first started, and how many people do you think are here now?
When Dillsboro first started, there were probably 60 or 70, and this was back in 1830. And if you look at the census records, you'll probably find I'm a little off. You know, in the late 1800s, there were 700. And my family moved to Dillsboro in 1947. And sometimes we still feel like newcomers.
Yeah.
But at that time, there were 528 people here.
Okay.
It had gone down, and now Dillsboro's probably got 1,300 people.
Okay.
But, you know, there's a lot of people in this area. The problem is Dillsboro's city limits are squeezed way in. So that's just the number of people living within those city limits. You go outside the city limits, and there's lots of people living.
How many churches are in Dillsboro now? I know you said it started out with the one, with the Hopewell. I'm sure there are several more.
It's
now.
still the Hopewell Presbyterian Church, even though the name of the town is Dillsboro. There are 2 Lutheran churches.
Okay.
There's a Baptist church. There's a Church of Christ. There's Cedars of Lebanon. I hope you've been counting them. And that's it for the churches. And the churches, they started a long, long time ago.
Yeah. And then what's the main road that goes through Dillsboro?
I'd like to talk about the main road going through Dillsboro because it used to be important. Okay, you take Highway 50. Highway 50 no longer goes through Dillsboro, but at one time, Highway 50 came down North Street and went out Bank Street. And that was before there were street signs. Those streets had those names and nobody knew what they were. But Highway 50 started on the Atlantic Ocean in Maryland, and it went to the Pacific Ocean in San Francisco, and it went right through Dillsboro. And we even had a stoplight in Dillsboro at the corner of North and Bank Streets, red, yellow, green. Didn't last long because Highway 50 in the 60s moved. Now Highway 50 is a 4-lane divided highway. It still goes through Dillsboro, but not through the main section of Dillsboro. I think we're probably lucky for that. You can get here easily, but you don't have to put up with the traffic in town.
And that's great for a small town feel, I'm sure. So what is your favorite part about Dillsboro? What do you think would be Dillsboro's claim to fame, or what would Dillsboro be known for?
Dillsboro's a friendly place. Dillsboro's a great place to raise a family.
Okay.
I was gone from Dillsboro for 30 years and I came back. And I came back because it was a friendly place. I remember the feeling when I came back. I lived on the eastern edge of Dillsboro. And I'd drive into Dillsboro to pick up my mail in the morning. I'd go to the post office and pick it up. And I'd be driving down the road and there'd be a car coming toward me, and I know he's looking to see who's in the car coming toward him. If he knows you, he waves. If he doesn't know you, just raise a finger. Just to acknowledge you're there.
thanks so much for sharing all of this information about Dillsboro. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
Danielle, I'd like to mention this has been so much fun doing this with you.
Great. Well, it's been fun talking with you too. We really appreciate it.
Well, we could go on for a long time, but you might not appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate all of the information that you shared thus far.
Well, Dillsboro is growing.
Yeah.
Dillsboro is growing. There are things happening in southeast Indiana. Redevelopment is occurring. In 25 years, Dillsboro is going to be a different place.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that we hope won't change.
Like it being friendly.
Like it being friendly. That's
Thank
exactly
you.
right.
Well,
Thank
we
you, Danielle.
appreciate it.
I do too. Come to Dillsboro. You're welcome.
Thanks again so much for tuning in to today's edition of History in Your Own Backyard. Today we spent time in Dillsboro, Indiana, talking with Mr. Jim Deaton all about the town. We certainly hope that you enjoyed learning all about it. Remember, travel slowly and stop often. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Danielle.
You're welcome.